Hi everybody, this is Teton Rockefeller with Teton Valley Realty. I am going to give you an overview of our new zoning map. This all was passed on July 6th of 2022, and this will be presented to you. I'm going to hope to do that as part of my real estate blog and a multi-part blog for the new Teton Valley Land Development Code, and that will be passed here in just a couple of days' time, I believe on August 3rd of 2022. This is only for the unincorporated areas of Teton County, the areas that you can see here in color. The areas in gray are actually city limits and city areas of impact. So what you can see here is the city limits of Victor and then the area of impact surrounding Victor. Those areas, for all intents and purposes of this overview, will not be a part of the presentation and the primary consideration for the Land Development Code. Each of the three cities have their own requirements and zoning types and code that coincides with those zoning types. A little bit of history here when we talk about the old code versus the new. A little bit of controversy here. This has been in place for many decades. Basically, there is a 20-acre zone, the dark brown that you can see here, and this is not an exact representation of what we historically had, but very close. The county actually took down the old zoning map, so I'm pulling this up from my archives. And then again, this lighter color that you can see here, kind of this light yellow-green, that's a minimum 2.5 acre parcel. So primarily for the purpose of the overview, we will have codes that tie to each of these zones, but to give you an understanding of the differences and the reason that I'm presenting this to you in the way that I am is basically subdivision and lot sizes. So again, with this dark brown area, historically 20 acre minimum, and then here again on the lighter area 2.5 acre minimum. And those were the two main zone types. We actually have quite a number of zone types in the new zone. This was kind of a controversial move by the county. It's been in the works for quite a long time. The argument being that the old zoning type that you can see on the right hand side of the screen was really kind of self-regulated by those property owners in the county. It was not tied to any comprehensive plan or future development plan. And the comprehensive plan actually recommended a variety of different types of use and zone types here in the county. So moving over to the left side of the screen, and the controversial elements aside, which might include the lack of property rights, those being able to not develop into smaller parcels, whatever that might be, that's behind us, that's history, and we are dealing with what we have now. I'm going to go through the different zone types one by one here on the left-hand side, and I'll zoom in a little bit to make this a little easier to see, particularly on some of those that don't have very much land associated with them. The first is the industrial zone, which is one of those. And that's the purple zone that you can see here. Just a couple of those throughout the county. Now, I must clarify, in the city limits of Driggs, you do have industrial zones. So this will not be the only industrial zone within Teton County. But as far as the unincorporated areas of the county, like we mentioned earlier, it's very limited in terms of the amount of industrial space. They're not associating a minimum lot size to the industrial zone. That may be addressed within the Land Development Code, and that'll be a part of the overview that I provide in my real estate blog, again, tetonrealtyblog.com. So again, industrial zone, fairly straightforward, fairly limited in size. The next zone is the rural neighborhood 5-acre average density zone. So we move from the industrial zones to what you see here in orange, and there's two of those main areas, and that's the rural neighborhood 5-acre average density. So the county has actually moved away from minimum lot sizes, which is what we historically would mention when we talked about the 2.5 acre and the 20 acre zones, and they're really pushing this average density zoning terminology. So that might mean that you could have a subdivision that let's say had 10 parcels and it were 1,000 acres. You could still have a 1 acre lot in the 5-acre zone, as I understand it. However, the average density of that subdivision must come to a 5-acre average density. And that provides for areas that could be set aside for conservation or the continued use for agriculture or farming. The next zone type is the mixed ag, rural neighborhood, 20-acre average density in this area. So we've moved from what you can see over here on the right side of 2.5 to a 20 acre. And some of these are huge moves. So again, that added was part of the controversy of those that were pushing for it for whatever wildlife or conservation or just future thought processes with the county and those visions associated with that, to kind of the property rights elements that others didn't agree with. There has been, just as a side note, always a controversy of how many subdivided lots we have available here in the county. And you can see that as you drive through many of these subdivisions with so many empty lots. So good arguments on both sides, but getting back to the different zone types, we moved from the mixed ag zone to the foothills 10 zone. That's over here on the west side of the valley at the base of the Big Hole Mountain Range. And this is a 10 acre average density zone. Again, historically 2.5. Next, again, we have another foothill zone. This is a 20 acre zone on the northeast and southeast portions of the valley, and that will be a 20 acre average density zone. The two main zones in the county include the rural agriculture and mixed agricultural, or otherwise known as the wetlands zones. These make up the vast majority of the county, as you can see here in the light yellow and the blue, and those are both 35 acre average density zones. Now that sounds like a huge piece of property. Again, part of the argument was not necessarily for a farmer in so many of these areas, as you can see historically, and what we see now, and you can even see it in the name, an agricultural zone, which continues today. And that moves from a 20 to a 35, and there's a good argument for some of these areas, particularly in the wetland areas, to not have so much impactful development. But again, taking away from historically what those might have had as far as a 20 acre zoned subdivision to almost half as many lots for any future development that a farmer may want to have. Of course, I wouldn't call these zones, but you do have the public lands portion of Teton County, and then National Forest, BLM, etc. And then we get back to the areas of impact and city limits. So again, Teton Rockefeller, Teton Valley Realty, giving you a quick overview of the new zoning here in Teton County, effective July 6, 2022. And you can stay tuned at Teton Realty blog to get a better understanding of the Teton County Land Development Code, soon also to be adopted, and what that might mean for the property that you're looking at or own. Thank you very much.